Welcome to the Geek podcast, where we've officially hit the point in the year where we record things out of time, and both of us are very confused with scheduling. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host Beej.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, well, I'll make it work. I'll make it work in post. We'll fix it in post. Today we're talking about The Mandalorian and kind of Disney Plus a little bit at the same time because they go hand in hand. But mostly we want to talk about The Mandalorian.
Which is one of the best things I've seen in so long. Like, I'm so excited about it. It's the only thing that I've gotten up early to watch, like, before work in a long time. I can't remember the last time I didn't just wait until the evening or some other time to watch it.
Yeah, you're texting me in the middle of the workday telling me, like, oh, it's so good. And I'm like, I can't. I'm at work. Like, I was jealous. I was jealous of your working from homeness.
And I know that you, because you get to work super early, so it was like you'd already been working probably an hour or so, and I'm just like here drinking coffee, watching the Mandalorian on the couch all laid out. It was great.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's good. We should probably say what it is if you don't know. So it's like so Disney Plus came out. Let's start there. And they have a bunch of original content, but they don't have all of the things they announced. Like, there's a lot of Marvel shows coming. There's more Star Wars stuff coming. They only have like a small selection of like original content to kick it off. But really the main thing, like the showpiece for their original content, is The Mandalorian. So it's set in the Star Wars universe. It's a live action Star Wars show. And it's not like M-rated or R-rated or anything, but it's definitely intended for adults. Like, kids could watch it, it would be fine, but you can tell by the tone of the show that they're making this for, like teenagers into adults, probably kind of like what the Marvel movies are going for. It's not made as much for kids as the Star Wars movies are.
Yeah, it's probably more in line with the Avengers movies than anything, and Civil War, kind of with that serious tone, but still not overly violent or anything. It's still Star Wars level violence.
Yeah, and it's really cool because, like, we've never had a Star Wars live action show before, so this is new, And I mean, I have to say, their release schedule was also super smart. They did 2 episodes in the first week. So one was right when the service launched, and then one was on Friday. So we didn't have to wait that long. So we get to actually talk about the first 2 episodes right now. And then there's a release every Friday. And then they kind of offset it the week that Rise of Skywalker comes out. So they're not competing on Friday with that new movie. It sounds like they're releasing like earlier that week or something, or they're skipping that week. And then they have the finale the week after Rise of Skywalker. So they've basically set it up to get the Star Wars hype to maximum levels just in time for the movie's release, which is so smart of them to do.
And then to maintain it afterward, because people will see the movie early, then there's the holiday, and so there's that lull around okay, I've seen it, I'm going to do this other stuff. Then you watch the finale of The Mandalorian, that makes you want to go back to the theater to watch Rise of Skywalker. Like, this is an absolutely incredible piece of marketing, the way that they've set it up.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it so much. Like, it's set in the Star Wars universe, obviously, but it's like post-Empire, but it's before the First Order. So it's after the Empire has fallen, but before kind of the new everything has been established, which is a really interesting time period. That's kind of where we have the least amount of information in the Star Wars canon at the moment, and that's what needs to be filled in. But it's all like geared around this one Mandalorian bounty hunter. And one of the things I was thinking about towards the end of it, like, I was just trying to pull my thoughts together today before we jumped on here. And the Mandalorian is almost what Boba Fett was always promised to be, but he never actually was. It was like what Boba Fett, it's what everybody wanted it to be. But if you look at what Boba Fett actually does, there's not a whole lot. He kind of stands around most of the time and looks intimidating, but he doesn't do much.
I mean, he didn't get a lot of play in the original movies, and then in the TV shows that they've done so far, he's a kid, so he hasn't really done anything. Then you had Jango in episode 2, that was kind of the, okay, look, we can do something with this, and then he got killed off so quickly, and this is what we've always wanted Boba Fett to be. And I've seen actually a lot of people online say that this feels like Boba Fett fan fiction, kind of because of that, because it does have that almost exact kind of Boba Fett feel, rather than kind of like the Mandalorians in Clone Wars. They don't have a Boba Fett feel so much.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, I think it's in the best way. It doesn't,
yes.
I don't know.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it didn't give me like a fan fiction vibe, but I definitely see like the Boba Fett underpinnings that it's pulling from, and like the DNA that it's kind of tapping into for it. But I just thought the first episode it set the mood so well. And more than anything else, it's almost a tone piece to kick it off.
Yeah, it established that this is a Western. That is the main thing that it did. I mean, that was one of the first things they announced about The Mandalorian before we even knew that it was about The Mandalorian. They said that they were making a post-Return of the Jedi Western based in the Outer Rim, was what I had heard. And I was like, great. That sounds awesome. We're going to get smugglers and bounty hunters and all of that stuff because, I mean, that's what the Western aspects of Star Wars, that's what they are. And so pulling it together with The Mandalorian is like they're shooting this like a Western. Like everything about this, from genre conventions to their camera angles, the way they're doing everything is Western. And it's like hitting you over the head with it so that you know that this is what you're watching. And the first episode is that down to a T, down to the shootout with people up top and having to take pot shots around cover. Like it is shot like a Western at an old saloon,
Yeah, it was super cool. I loved that shootout. That was probably one of the best things in the first 2 episodes was that shootout at the end of episode 1. This is going to be full of spoilers if you guys don't know that already. We're deep into it. So, but the IG unit was really cool also. Like, I love how they worked that in there, right? It wasn't IG-88, but it's like, okay, I see what they're doing. Bounty hunters, like, actually showing us how this droid would be deadly. Because I always kind of looked at IG-88 and thought, like, that's kind of lame. Like, I don't get it. And now it's like, oh, okay, I see what they were going for.
Yeah, they turned the spindly, weird-looking thing into a terrifying monstrosity of like guns and death, and he's a death tornado, and it's wonderful. Like IG-11, he was voiced by Taika Waititi, the guy who did Korg, voice of Korg in Thor Ragnarok, and actually directed Thor Ragnarok. So I'm curious because of what happens at the end of the first episode with him being killed, if we're going to get him back, because I love the humor that they had, just setting up that rapport between them. Was like, okay, time to self-destruct, and he's like, no, stop trying to self-destruct. Like, I love stuff like that, and I would love this to be more of a buddy thing with those two not liking one another, but then he killed him. So I don't know if that's subversion or if it's something to come back to.
Yeah, and I don't know, the first 2 episodes really feel like they're trying to set the tone and set the premise, and then there was kind of a clean, it's not a perfectly clean break, but there's definitely like a break in what they've been doing after episode 2 that sets it up for like, okay, everything after episode 2 is going to be probably the rest of the season, and it feels like he needs more people to bounce off of, almost like that kind of like guest character was in the first 2 episods, the guy who had spoken. Him? I don't actually know his name. What was his name?
I don't know what his name was. I have no idea. He's one of the ones I haven't looked up a name for or anything and never heard. I call him Nick Nolte because Nick Nolte did his voice and was playing him. So I just referred to him as Nick Nolte when Jennifer and I are talking about him.
That alien that says, I have spoken, like he feels almost like a surrogate crew for a little bit, and then he doesn't stick with him. So it feels like the Mandalorian is ready to go and get a crew and like acquire one and kind of get a little bit more connected to the world. So I hope they touch on that because he does need more people to bounce off of. But they've done such a good job of showing his personality and kind of his moods, his emotions, all of that while wearing a helmet the entire time. He hasn't taken up a helmet in 2 episodes, and that's such a bold choice, but it works so well.
And I'm curious if they're going to, if he's actually going to take it off, because Pedro Pascal is a fantastic actor. Obviously, we've seen him, and he's pretty. Like he's a good-looking guy. So to keep him under the mask is a strange choice, but at the same time, he's doing so well with just body language that I could see them doing it and just keeping that where you don't know what he looks like or his name the entire time. But I expect we're going to get a name when they start going into more of, you haven't gotten your sigil yet or something along those lines.
Yeah, well, it really seems like they're digging into like the Mandalorian lore and making some more of it canon, but also just exposing a lot more of it to, kind of adults, like the adults that have never gone out and read the books or watched the cartoons like you and I have. Because like as much as the cartoons can be good, even like, the 3D animated ones, they're really for kids first, and like adults can also enjoy them. And I know that when I'm watching them, so do you. But then like, the novels that have like dive deep and stuff, there haven't been a whole lot of the ones in the new canon that actually touched on Mandalorian stuff. So this show is already doing a lot to just kind of like solidify some of it in canon and then also get everybody else up to speed on things that we do know from, the live action, or not live action, but like 3D cartoons.
Yeah, and that was something I was thinking about earlier too, that this is the first TV show that isn't aimed at kids. That at first, I mean, because like you said, they're good, but I still look at Clone Wars as a kid show. Resistance, I've heard, is actually even more of a kid show, and I haven't started it. So it's something that with The Mandalorian, people will see and think that it's for them, because there are a lot of people who avoid animation outright, thinking that it's for children.
Yeah, but I mean, one of the main things that I'm glad that they got into this was Beskar Steel. Like, that's so important. And I think you had mentioned that it's probably in Clone Wars, which makes sense to me too. That it's in there in canon somewhere, but this makes it more real because like we've never seen it live action before. It feels so different, and kind of getting that into Mandalorian culture and the fact that they never really take off their armor unless they absolutely have to, and he wears his helmet all the time. Like I want to know more about it and how they're going to personify that as it goes along.
And as they've talked about them not taking off their helmets and things, when he goes into the Enclave in the first episode and you see the other Mandalorians, you see kids with helmets on, and you see different shapes of helmets as well. It's something that I think they're going to be playing with a lot, is, what we think of with him as fans, and then we're actually going to dig into the culture at some point over the series. Whether that's season 1 or season 2 or anything, we'll just have to see, because the episodes are actually short and so are the seasons.
Yeah, it's good though. Like, I love what I've seen so far, and I'm surprised at how much I'm liking it, even though there's no Jedi, there's no Sith, there's no galaxy spanning consequences that we know of, but hopefully they don't do that. Like, there's new characters, there's new locations. I want more of that. I want more of that world building and touching on things that we don't already know. Like, as much as I love a good Force user story or Jedi story or Sith story, I want other things, because Star Wars is sometimes, it has this tendency to, it can be its best when it's being weird and doing new things. And I want more of that.
Yeah, and I'm really impressed by the way that they could do the world building with this one. That one of the things, like you and I are both playing Jedi Fallen Order right now, and one of the best things about it to me is the expansion of the universe. That I like just exploring in it, just to see the worlds, just to see what I can see and what they've put in kind of as Easter eggs. And that's the way I feel about The Mandalorian. When I'm watching it, I'm looking at these planets, trying to see things and Easter eggs in the background, and just what they've done for set dressing, like actual set dressing, to make it more interesting and tie in with the rest of the series and the rest of the movies, I guess, and TV shows. But it's like, I love how they're able to expand on it because of TV.
Well, and they're doing really smart things to tie back things from the movie, but to give it something new, right? So I'm thinking about like the Sandcrawler, the Jawa Sandcrawler. Right. Like, there's a whole episode that's kind of centered around it, and that gave you this chance to really understand it as this giant monstrosity hulking thing that's actually really intimidating and dangerous. I never felt like that watching it in the movies, but now I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, that is kind of intimidating and scary, because that would be hard to assault them, basically, because he tries and he fails. That was fun. And then stuff like, we can't not talk about like the Baby Yoda species, which there's no name for. So like in canon, in the current canon, there's no name for Yoda's species. We do know that there's Yoda, and then is it Yaddle that was on the council? Yeah.
Yep, Yaddle was on the council. I think it's Yaddle, and she was in the show or the movie for all of 15 seconds total, just in the background, and never really talked about or brought up again.
Yeah, so now we get a baby Yoda. It's not a Yoda, but it's whatever Yoda's species is, and it uses the Force, and that's interesting. Like, do all of them from that species use the Force? Or, if it's been around for 50 years, could it be a clone of Yoda or someone Yoda-like? Like, there are questions there that aren't answered, and I like that. But it feels like it's going to add something to the world building and the universe because of the way they've structured it.
Yeah, and I've heard rumors about different things on different speculation boards and Reddits and stuff that I won't say or anything on here for people who don't want to know any of the rumors or anything. But one of the big things about them bringing it in is that I'm hoping that we see like maybe other members of the culture as well, like not just this baby that might have been kidnapped or might have been cloned and shipped off like product or something like that, but that we may see other adult members of the clan, the family of whatever the species. I want to see a lot more, and we have finally the opportunity for that in a TV show that where they wouldn't maybe be able to spend a lot of time on that if it were a movie.
Yeah, well, it's probably worth mentioning, like, that is one of the most interesting things about it, is that we've never had a live action TV show for it, like for Star Wars, ever.
Right.
And I think this is what Star Wars needed. Like, Star Wars has been trying to find its way since it landed at Disney. You know, they started episode 7, 8, 9, but that's coming to a close. And they were trying to, in between those episodes, launch these other movies and kind of do what they were doing with Marvel, where, oh, we're going to put out a Star Wars thing every year and everyone's going to love it. And it didn't pan out that way. Like, people don't really like Rogue One and Solo the same way that they like the core movies. And it's almost soured people on the episodic movies because of it, which is the opposite of what they wanted.
Yeah, and it's really strange to me that it happened that way. That the Marvel movies can keep coming out, 2 or 3 a year sometimes, and people just eat them up. And then there's Star Wars that you do the extra year, you put one out more than every 2 years at least, and they just can't keep that quality up. And I don't know if that speaks to the quality of the movies and the saga movies in general and what we expect out of them, or if it's just a hard thing to get that kind of quality in and not make it seem trite, because in a comic book movie it's okay to feel comic booky, but in Star Wars you don't really want it to feel comic booky, even though whimsy and quirk are part and parcel of it. That it takes a very specific kind of person to do science fantasy right, and they may not be able to find that.
There's also something to be said about, it's kind of a miracle that any TV show or any movie ever gets completed. As someone who worked in production for more than a decade, it's hard to do. It's very, very hard to do, and people forget that because we're in such a golden age of TV and movies right now. But Marvel and the MCU it's probably never going to be replicated ever. Like, it is unique and it is amazing that they have been able to do it. And unless you've worked in production, it's kind of hard to overstate how impressive it is that they have kept their output so consistently solid and good across the entire thing. You need somebody with their hand on it who is keeping that consistency and has the overall vision. And so for Marvel, it's Kevin Feige. But for Star Wars, it's supposed to be Kathleen Kennedy, but it hasn't been working out the way that people thought that it would. So it's really good to see that now that they've come around to trying a live TV show, this is a good fit. And this is a really good fit for the universe. And maybe this is the way forward. Maybe you only have a Star Wars movie every 2 or 3 or 4 years. So it's this really big deal and it can be of epic quality. And then in between, you fill it in with live action Star Wars shows. I'd be all there for that.
I think you're absolutely right, because that's the thing about Star Wars movies is that, and Star Wars in general for me, is that I go so deep that I'll then burn myself out on Star Wars. And when Rogue One and Solo were coming out in between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, I didn't get excited for them. I was basically making sure that I was holding myself back for the saga movies, for the episode movies, without really letting myself get super pumped like I do, because I knew that I was going to burn out and maybe not want to see or care that much about the ones that I really, really, really was invested in, because all of the other movies, these other 6 that have come out, and 7 as well, the 7 of them at least, have been event movies for me. And having an event movie every year is really taxing on hype-based fans like me.
Yeah, it's hard. They got to give it more room to breathe. And, the other thing is, when you're doing a movie every year, then almost everything that you put out in Star Wars has to tie into it. And it's so limiting to do that to yourself, because it's oh, well, we have a new video game coming out. How do we tie that into the movie that's about to come out? Or we have more novels. How do we tie the next 2 or 3 novels into the movie that's coming out that year? Whereas if you give it more room to breathe, Star Wars can get weird again, and it can go off on these tangents that people just love. People like me. That's what I really like. I want to know more about the universe and the weird stuff going on in it.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about next week about Jedi Fallen Order once we've both beaten it. And one of the things about it that I like is I'm seeing elements of Star Wars in it, getting explanation and talking about and like seeing places that have only been mentioned before, that I've never been able to explore or even know existed. And I'm excited about that. And that's what the TV is going to be able to do as well, because those are the things like you that I care about. One of the things you were saying a second ago with them being more event movies, you're not having to tie everything into them all the time. I think that is going to be like a saving grace for Star Wars, and I think it may be a misstep for the MCU, because Kevin Feige came out and said they have this like 13-minute like featurette that has Comic-Con clips and things like that from about the MCU and upcoming movies on Disney Plus, and he said that the MCU Phase 4 won't make any sense if you have to watch all of the TV shows for the Phase 4 to make sense, which I think is stupid.
Yeah, that seems like a misstep. I don't know.
It does.
Yeah, we'll see if that's an overstatement to try to get people to watch them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Because I hope that's not actually full on true. Like, because even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got to the point where I couldn't keep up with it. And there were some tie-ins, but not major ones, thank goodness, because it just became too overwhelming to keep up with everything like that, with all the movies coming out and all that TV show and everything else.
Yeah, and it depends too, right? Like if it's this kind of premiere TV that they're going for with The Mandalorian, where there's like 6 or 8 episodes to a season and that's
right.
it, maybe it would be fine, especially if the episodes are like half hour to 45 minutes, right? So if you get like 8 to 10 episodes, 45-ish minutes for like WandaVision, like that's not unreasonable to watch. Whereas if they're actually going to output like 22 episode hour-long shows, that becomes a harder ask.
Yeah, and like I don't want that. I used to be the kind of person who wanted full 22 episode seasons, and now I've gotten really weary of them. I'm tired of seeing those. When I see it, it's like, oh man, I wish that was 13. Like 12 to 13 is my favorite length of season. When it's a 6 episode, I get really sad because it's not gonna it's gonna get me excited, really want to see a lot of it. 10 is pretty okay. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. 12 to 13 ish, I'm like, good. They're gonna be able to tell a solid story, go into enough detail, and not have lots of filler.
Yeah, I really like the 8 to 10. 8 to 10 usually is enough to tell a really good story, and if it's 8, it's like I almost like 8-episode seasons of stuff more than anything else, because it almost always leaves me satisfied but also wanting more. Whereas if I get to 10 episodes, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Or if it's at 6, I'm like, oh, I really, really wanted more of that. 8 is kind of like, I don't know, for some reason that's kind of the middle ground I'm landing in. But I mean, speaking of like all of that, Disney Plus is a thing that we should probably talk about before we jump off this topic in general. So it came out and it had like 10 million subscribers on day one, of which you and I were both one. There's so much content there. There's so much content. And it's also organized really poorly.
It's so hard to find things. That there are features in this app that really need to be there. And it's version 1. I'm okay with it, whatever. We're used to stuff being put in updates. But it's not organized well.
No, and that's okay. I mean, they'll get there, right? There are some originals, so there's stuff like The Imagineering, and I know Lady and the Tramp, and there's like a movie that was a Christmas movie like Noelle, and then Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Mandalorian's the big one. There's The World According to Jeff Goldblum, which I watched like 10 minutes of, and I couldn't do anymore.
I haven't watched any of it. We want to, but we haven't watched it. There's Encore with Kristen Bell. There is High School Musical, the series, and things like this. And it looks like all of these are on a weekly release schedule, that they're all going to be on a Friday schedule, because it looked like there was a new Imagineering one when we went and looked at it this weekend, that we didn't realize that they were going to be releasing simultaneously on Fridays.
Yeah, so I want to dive into those more. I haven't done a whole lot besides watching like The Mandalorian and then going into their back catalog. And then I just started to dabble with the other originals. But have you watched any more of those?
Of the originals?
Yeah.
The only ones that I've watched are the first Imagineering episode. We watched Lady and the Tramp, which I was not interested in. I didn't really like the animated series or the animated show Lady and the Tramp when I was a kid, the animated movie, and never have. But I thought that the live action one, once you get past the kind of weird animation in the first few minutes of it, that it was delightful. It was one of the just most entertaining movies I've seen in a long time because it's just pure. These dogs are falling in love, and I loved it. And we've watched a couple episodes of DuckTales. We've watched a few of the original Mickey Mouse cartoons, like the old vintage Steamboat Willie, and then later ones like that. We'll just sit and watch an 8-minute long Mickey Mouse cartoon, and they're great. I just love old cartoons like that.
Yeah, I went back and watched some of the back catalog, and I think between Star Wars and the Disney back catalog, and I don't even know if MCU really is that much of it for me because there's so many places to get MCU stuff. But
right.
Like between Star Wars and the Disney back catalog, this service is so completely worth it for me. And all of the originals that they're putting out are kind of like extra on top of it, you know? If they weren't doing originals in the Star Wars universe, I probably would have hesitated on day one. But The Mandalorian is really what like sold me into it.
I actually would have gotten day one because of DuckTales and things like that, and the like Star Wars Clone Wars and Rebels series being on there. I have been watching Rebels, actually. I have gone in and watched a few episodes of Rebels. They also have like old stuff from when we were kids as well. They've got the old DuckTales. They've got all the Disney Afternoon stuff where they have Gummy Bear. I think Gummy Bears is on there. I haven't looked for it specifically. But Darkwing Duck and stuff like that. So I'm really, really excited to watch a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, I want to go back and re-experience that and see how it holds up because I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
A lot of it does. That we actually have the Darkwing Duck DVDs, and watching them, they're still fun to watch. I'm not going to binge watch them or anything. That's the way a lot of like Disney series were at that time. It's hard to watch lots of those episodes, but as one-offs, they're fun. Also, the old X-Men show is on there. The Fox X-Men show is on there to watch, which we had no idea about, but it was a nice surprise that morning.
Yeah, and I know one of the other things that sold a lot of people that I know into it is that there's like the full Simpsons back catalog there, which I liked Simpsons for like a couple years when I was like 10, I think, but I was never really into it the way that some people are into it. But there's like 30 seasons of The Simpsons there. I mean, there's so much Star Wars stuff. You know, I started watching Star Wars, what's it called? Resistance?
Resistance, yeah.
Yeah, I started watching that with my kids. It's definitely a kid's show, so I'm watching it with them instead of on my own because I would burn out if I was just watching that at my normal pace of like, oh, let me get through this. It's not really that kind of show for me. But I did start going back and watching through all the Pixar shorts because those have been really hard to find over the years, and the Pixar shorts are so good. Like that's some of the really best filmmaking that Pixar has ever done is in those shorts.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of those on different shorts collections, like either that somebody will have one and we borrow it, or there's a collection on Netflix or something like that. But just going and watching, I've done that too, just watching the shorts because they are great. They are some of the best stuff that they've done, like you said.
Yeah, and there's one in there that I hadn't seen in years because I could never find it again. It's Lava, which is from the front of Moana. You've seen that one, right?
Oh, yeah, made me cry.
Okay, so I've watched that one again probably like 10 times in the last week since Disney Plus came out.
Wow.
Because I mean,
it is brilliant.
Really like that one.
It is one of the best ones they've ever done.
Yeah. So I think overall Disney Plus gets thumbs up from both of us.
Yeah, I am really enjoying it. And the thing is, like, I know that a lot of people are not getting it because they have feelings about Disney as a company and ethics and all of the stuff that goes into politics. But the thing that happens with Disney for me is that looking at this stuff, it is such a part of my childhood and growing up that I love Disney because of the feeling that this content creates in me. And Disney Plus, loading it up and seeing it all right there and being able to watch is so much better than having it on DVD or Blu-ray or anything because it's all right there and there's stuff that I've never been able to see on TV like this before. And so like it is so worth the price that they're charging.
Yeah, and we're both so psyched for the rest of The Mandalorian, so I don't think there's any way The Mandalorian doesn't make our top 5 lists of the best of the rest for the year, which is coming up very soon for recording.
No, I'm really, really excited about what's going to be on that, because the last half of this year has been really solid with stuff. And I mean, like, talking about the Mandalorian, I didn't realize until the second episode that with the Jawas and the Sandcrawler stuff, that some of the toys that I've seen in the store, like they have an off-world Jawa is what they call it in the Black Series. And I was like, oh, they're going to have those. That's really cool in Rise of Skywalker. I wonder what planet they're going to be on. And it turns out that the toy was from the Mandalorian, and I didn't know that. Like, it was really nice to see that they're putting out toys for this stuff that I had no idea in that last batch of stuff that they did on Force Friday, that I had no idea was either Rise of Skywalker or Mandalorian, and that they're interesting enough that it doesn't matter which one it is, that they're both coming out. It's like, oh, these are really cool. And it's like, I like that there are little Jawas on another planet. Like, that's neat. And they're mean. But okay, so this egg thing, right?
Yeah.
You know the storyline where he's having to get this egg for them.
I do. I watched the show. Yes.
Yes. Well. I'm just pointing that part out. Shut up. And shushy. As my wife tells me all the time, shushy. When they got the egg, what did you think? Would it surprise you that they just broke into it and started eating it immediately?
Not really. Like, I guess I didn't know what they were gonna do, but I wasn't surprised because they were Jawas. They can do whatever.
They can do whatever, but it was just so weird to me that, like, we're going to eat this like Winnie the Pooh eats his honey. And I'm just like, that's strange. It's not what I expected them to do. I was like, man, they really like eggs. But yeah, it was just weird. I did not expect it. Yeah, okay. I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's just like that part really surprised me, because I thought there was going to be more, like, because of all the lead up to it. Like, they're trading a spaceship for this egg. It's like, nah, I'm just going to eat this egg. Like,
okay,
all right.
That's probably a good place to put down the topic of The Mandalorian. Why don't you tell people where they can support us if they want to?
If you'd like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/geek2geekcast. We have all sorts of rewards on there. You can hang out with us on Discord as a patron saint of geekery. You can do all sorts of other stuff that my brain stopped working a little bit ago. So I was thinking about that egg, and I can't remember anymore because of that. But you can go see, just like me, at patreon.com/geek2geekcast.
Yeah, come tell us what you like about The Mandalorian or Star Wars or anything, because we love having those conversations. Around the network this week, Geekitude, Joe had a guest on, and they talked about audio entertainment in general, which is interesting because everyone who's listening to this right now is listening to audio entertainment, so you're obviously interested in the topic, hopefully. Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea, they talked about Last Christmas, so they're kind of getting onto Christmas movies. They've been on a movie kick lately. And then Troidal is streaming randomly in the mornings these days. Capsule J is streaming Tuesdays from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern, and Sundays from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. And then the Geekery, you can go and see what everyone's been writing about. So we have Austin's Dragon Quest, we have 13th Story writing about video games and stuff, and Data Error is on there, and he's new. We should probably tell everybody that, but he's writing about all sorts of stuff too.
Yep, he's got a Pokemon post, was his first one talking about it, and it's great. If you haven't read his blogs before, go to geek2geekmedia.com/geekery and you can read it. It's good. He's good at what he does.
Yeah. So time for Weekly Geekery, where we share what we've been geeking out about this week. What have you been doing? Or is it mostly Disney Plus?
It's mostly Disney Plus and Jedi Fallen Order that I had some issues thinking I wasn't going to get Fallen Order in after I pre-ordered it. And I still don't have my pre-order code. Like, I was told by Amazon that they didn't get enough from the manufacturer, so I didn't get my orange lightsaber and stuff with it. But I've been playing it. We'll talk about it a lot next week. But I was really, really hesitant about the game, and I didn't know if I was going to like it. So I was like really trying to figure out ways. Should I buy it here? So I could take it back at GameStop within 48 hours? Should I buy it on Steam, play it, and then like transfer it, like buy it on PlayStation then? And then I just decided that I was lazy and didn't want to go back to the store and get out that afternoon. I went and just opened up the deluxe edition that actually got delivered on time, like I thought it wouldn't. And I thought it was going to be a waste of money at first because the combat was fun, but I got really frustrated at how often I died, which was fine. I didn't mind dying that often, I minded the 3 to 4 minutes my PlayStation took to load between deaths. And so that got really frustrating, but I turned the difficulty down to story mode, and I've been loving it. Like, it really feels like the follow-up to Force Unleashed that I've been waiting on this entire time, and I know we're going to talk about it a lot more next week, so I won't say a lot to it, but if you're on the fence and are not sure if you're a Souls-type combat person like I'm not, the story mode still makes it so that you can have a really good time with it, even if you're terrible at those games and don't enjoy them like I do.
Yeah, so Jedi Fallen Order was probably the thing I did the most for Geekery in the last week. I destroyed that game. Like, I beat it in 2 days. You did? Yeah, I didn't start it until Saturday, and I was done by Sunday night. But that was pretty much all I did for Saturday and Sunday. So it was one of those rare weekends where I wasn't crazy busy, because usually I'm busy all the time, no matter what day of the week it is. And it just lined up where I could sit there for like 2 days, which is, like I said, something I rarely do. So I crushed the game in a good way, and it gets 2 thumbs up for me, and I really want to talk about the ending, but almost nobody has beaten it. So that's the downside of finishing a game like 2 days after it comes out. You're almost there, so I can almost talk to you about it.
I'm almost there. I've played it a lot this weekend, so I'm almost there.
Yeah, so we'll hold that for next week. Other stuff I did was I checked out Gloomhaven, the digital edition on Steam, because it's kind of been in my cart, and I was waiting for a sale, and it was on sale the other week. So it's a solid digital version of the board game, but it's just not as compelling as the board game without having the campaign behind it. Because the campaign, that persistent campaign, really is this like through line and like storytelling mechanism, and it doesn't have that yet. It has this like early access like adventure mode because they're still working on the campaign and everything that goes into that. So I played a few hours, and I basically just decided that I'm going to wait until the campaign releases in 2020. So they said it's out sometime next year. They're actively developing it. So it's sitting there in the starting menu. It's just grayed out right now.
I haven't heard that they were doing a digital version until this. That's really neat, where I'll wait because I want to play the game. I don't have a lot of board game friends like around locally that I can get together with regularly, so Gloomhaven on Steam might be a good way to do that.
Yeah, it's super fun. Well, it's I should say Gloomhaven in general is really fun, and this makes it more approachable because you don't have to do all the setup. The game just does it for you. But without that campaign, it loses some of the, I don't know, like internal consistency and like the story that pulls you through. So yeah, your mileage may vary. If you really just like the gameplay, go get it. Like, don't hesitate. Totally go just get it right now. If you're into Gloomhaven for the story and those connective tissues, just wait a little bit because it'll be there soon. And then beyond that, I did Minecraft Earth. So this finally came out in, again, a kind of early access beta stage, but anybody can get into it. So it's just an open beta. I like this game a lot. You know what it is, right?
Yeah, I do. I did not know it was out for public consumption yet.
Yeah, it is as of like a week ago. So it's basically Pokemon Go in the overworld where you walk around, you tap on stuff, and then you tap it some more to collect it so you can get like building blocks. But the cool part and the fun part of the game is not that. Like, that's kind of a side activity, even though it feels very much like Pokemon, is that you can put a build plate down like anywhere and you can just build on it, but you can build with friends. So like you can hit a button and it opens up a QR code, and anybody else that has the app can scan that QR code, and you can all build or like destroy your build plate together. So me and my kids, like, we parked a build plate on the carpet in the center of the floor, and the 3 of us were just like building on it together and destroying on it together. And it's like Minecraft, but in real life. And it was just crazy. It was so much fun to do.
That sounds really awesome as like this first proof of concept. Like, I'm not a Minecraft person, so I mean, this will be something that I'll get and I'll play with it just to see what it is. But this is the kind of thing that I want to exist as AR games so badly.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really good AR game. It's probably the best AR game that I have ever seen. So
nice.
That's good. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to this week. So that's probably it for this week. You can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We also have longer discussion threads on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast.
We also have great discussions on our Slack and Discord. You can go to geek2geekmedia.com for invite links, and while you're there, check out all the other content on our network.
I blog at agreenmushroom.com, and you can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's, and you can listen to me even more on the Dragon Quest FM podcast.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
I'm slightly less confused now.
Hey geeks, this is Capsule J. I'm a streamer on the Geek to Geek Media Network. If you like discovering new games and chatting with cool nerdy folks, be sure to check out my channel on Twitch. You can find it at twitch.tv/CapsuleJ. That's CapsuleJay. I stream a blend of indies, retro games, and RPGs most Tuesday nights from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern, and occasionally on Thursdays and weekends. Hope to see you then.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.
Hello friends, this is Troidal Power inviting you to join me over on Twitch most weeknights, sometime after dinner. Video games have always been a social hobby for me, with friends and family crammed together on a couch chatting away while someone holds the controller. And thanks to the power of the internet, I've got my own virtual couch over on Twitch where you can kick back and goof off while I play games. Find me on Twitch by searching Troidal Power, that's TROYTLE Power, to snag a spot on the couch.
Hello, I'm Katie.
And I'm Chelsea.
And together we are Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea, a podcast all about pop culture.
We talk about books, movies, music, basically anything we want at this point. Yes, we obsess about K-pop.
And Keanu Reeves.
And sometimes Katie cries on the podcast.
Hey, that's rude.
But really, we're just here to talk about all the things that we love, so make sure to head over to teatimewithkc.com and geek2geekmedia.com to check us out. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to our show wherever you download your podcasts.
Bye!